So, Rob Edwards is officially the Borough manager. Finally. Let's give my initial thoughts and feelings on it. So it's been dropped officially today, finally, after what felt like an eternity of waiting, that Rob Edwards is Borough's next head coach. The worst kept secret in football is out. And it's a divisive one. It's one of the most divisive appointments I think I've seen at Middlesbrough for a very, very long time. The initial response to the rumours were very, very bad. They haven't improved all that much, although I would say things have calmed down a little bit within the Borough fan base, maybe just because fans have started to come to terms with the fact that he is our next manager and there's nothing they can do about that. But I would say there are certainly reasons to also be optimistic on Rob Edwards' appointment. So here's my overall take and my overall thoughts on it. Now, I'd be lying if I thought that Rob Edwards was the best candidate for the Borough job. I honestly believe if Borough had truly scouted all of Europe, they probably would have found someone better. So I'm struggling to believe and subscribe to the idea that he is the absolute best candidate that Borough could have got their hands on. But equally, I do not subscribe to the narrative either that he's the absolute worst. You know, the overreaction within the Borough fan base to this appointment has been absolutely insane. I've never seen many managers get so quickly wrote off and called this, that and the other, and essentially not wanted by a fan base as Rob Edwards has done with Borough. But I get it in a sense, I get it to a degree. The reason why I understand the frustration amongst Borough fans is that it's a safe appointment. It's not exactly all that different to what we've had throughout the last decade, a decade to which we've tried every which manager, you know, around the houses and down the drains, and we've not essentially achieved anything or gotten anywhere. So I can see why this appointment basically will just make the impatience within Borough fans come out even more so and make them feel even more frustrated that this is just us going around in the same old cycle. And I do agree that it now was probably the time to do something a bit different, to look at something a little bit more left field. But at the same time, we are a championship club, a mid-table championship club, who have been in the championship for the most part of the last decade and a half. We've barely got ourselves close to promotion. The two playoff campaigns we've had have been pretty dull. You know, we've not laid a glove on either of them. For the most part, we've been mid-table. We've averaged around 8th in the championship since relegation. So then part of me thinks, well, what divine right do we have to demand a certain level of manager, to demand a certain name with a certain CV when we are essentially a mid-table championship club? And when you've got a manager coming in who's got 2 promotions on his CV, I don't think you can turn your nose up at that. I don't think we have the right to turn our nose up at that. And when you look at the 2 other candidates we believe he was in competition with, I don't believe Steve Cooper ever wanted the job. I think that's down to a number of factors. But I also don't think Danny Röhl wanted the job either. I think he's focused on managing in Germany. I think he wants to manage abroad. And plus there are so many complications to his release clause and working with a man like Dijon Chansiri at Sheffield Wednesday. So we've come to Rob Edwards, and I get it. He knows Kieran Scott. People can see this as a jobs for the boys yes man appointment. But for me, I'd rather our head coach have a great working relationship with the head of football. We need the whole team, the whole operation to work seamlessly together as one. So I don't know why him having a great relationship with the head of football is an issue when it's much better that than him bringing someone in who Kieran Scott detests and can't work with, because we'll end up back in the same position with which we were with Wilder, and in the same position we were worried we were going with Michael Carrick. So the relationship between the two, I think, is, you know, that's a non-starter in terms of making that an excuse for not bringing him in. I can see that as a strong reason for. But I also just think overall, there are pros and cons, absolutely, but I think it's fine. I think it's a fine appointment. And there are pros, there are cons. There is a Luton Town-sized hangover, a relegation-sized hangover that we need him to get over, which could be a big, big issue. But equally, we've seen what he can do at the likes of Forest Green Rovers and Luton Town by getting them out of their respective divisions at 2 clubs that were relative underdogs where he significantly overachieved. Now, listing the pros as to why I like Rob Edwards, there are quite a few. I think not only is the fact he's got a good relationship with Kieran Scott, one big positive, but I also really like him. I really like Rob Edwards as a character. I think he's a very likeable guy, a very honest guy. I think he's big on respect and honesty, and I think we'll get a lot more out of him with press conferences. And I feel like with the criticisms that Carrick got in terms of his character and how reserved and closed off he was, I think Rob Edwards, if things go well on the pitch, is the sort of character that I think can resonate very, very well with Borough fans off the pitch. And I think Borough fans will buy massively into him as a person if the results on the pitch start well. I also think you can't disregard his achievements. You know, if this was 12 months ago, he'd have a pretty perfect CV, and this would be an appointment that looked a lot better on paper. You know, as I say, he took a Forest Green Rovers side out of League 2 into League 1, playing fantastically creative football, being the top goal scorers in the division, and you only have to look at where Forest Green Rovers are now back in the National League to see how great of an achievement it was that he got them up into League 1. He, of course, left them for Watford, a short spell, which was pretty indifferent. I think because he got sacked, people will instantly look at it as a bad appointment or a bad spell, but you know, it was a mediocre spell, and you can't judge managers too harshly on how they get sacked from Watford, because every man and his dog has been sacked by Watford. And of course, the big pro came at Luton Town when he took over, when they were 10th in the league, got them up to 3rd, navigated them through a playoff campaign, and then got them in to the Premier League. Now, I've seen some adamant Edwards haters, do I want to say, who will not even give him credit for the Luton Town promotion, which I find absolutely absurd. How you can not credit him for that is bonkers. He took over, and yeah, the foundations were there, they were in place. Nathan Jones did a great job before him, but he took a team from 10th into the playoffs, but then not only got them into the playoffs, he then got them promoted via the playoffs. The same playoff four, I may add, that Michael Carrick failed to get us through with what I believed was a better squad than what Rob Edwards had at Luton Town. So in terms of a manager who can walk into a setup, a stable setup, and take it up a notch, he's proven he can do that, and that's exactly where Borough are right now. 10th in the league, Carrick's laid decent foundations, we're not in a bad spot by any means. And he can come into the Borough job like he did the Luton job, and hopefully replicate a similar success with a full pre-season, with a full squad of his own, and hopefully with a full season to do that. And again, people are saying that he took over Nathan Jones's squad as a bad thing. I've seen people suggest, well, it was someone else's squad he got them up with, and I say, well, you're proving my point. It's even more impressive that he got a team promoted with a squad that wasn't even his. That's even more impressive than if he had a whole squad of his choosing. So, yeah, his time at Luton Town was fantastic for the most part, and another stick that's there to beat him with is back-to-back relegations. But in all honesty, I don't think you can judge him on the Premier League relegation at all. You know, there's no shame in getting Luton Town relegated from the Premier League. No one expected them to be in the Premier League anyway. It's more a miracle that he got them there in the first place, and they were mostly competitive for the majority of the season, ran out of steam and fell short towards the end, but were by far the most competitive of all the sides who went down that season. More competitive than Vincent Kompany's Burnley, and he went on to get the Bayern Munich job. So Rob Edwards moving on to Borough doesn't sound so bad in retrospect, does it? Of course, there are other pros as well. I really like his style of play. I like the way he sets teams up. He uses wing-backs. He plays with a back three. I think that's the sort of setup that gives you more of a balance. You know, you can drop back into a solid 5 if you want to go away from home and defend. You can push your wing-backs up if you're at home. I feel like it's the sort of formation that you can move around and change in different situations, and will be a lot less rigid than Michael Carrick's 4-2-3-1, to which we just played the same brand of football, home or away, and that's why results were probably so inconsistent and all over the place. So I like the way he sets teams up. He's big on an aggressive press, which I think will definitely, again, resonate with Borough fans, seeing their team going after the opposition, pressing hard, trying to wing the ball back as soon as possible, being really, really aggressive off the ball. That is something I think Borough fans will want to see from their team. And he's also big on the wing-backs, getting down the sides, whipping balls into the box, providing width, and bombarding the opposition's box with crosses, with 2 strikers in there to hopefully get on the end of them. I think his style of football will massively, connect with Borough fans compared to the very slow, ponderous, possession-based style that we had under Michael Carrick, which, of course, when it wasn't going well, was very, 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 very boring. So all that's good stuff. all that's good stuff. His CV up until last season, his style of football, everything about him, I think, is pretty good. But of course, the big con, the elephant in the room is he was a big part of Luton Town's relegation to League One. And that's a hangover he's got to get over. It really, really is. You know, I think there was a degree of him not being able to prevent the slide there last season, maybe not being able to adjust his tactics enough to get them out of the hole they were in. And when they started going down that slippery slide towards the drop, there's nothing he could do to stop it. And I think the fact he's an emotional guy is a positive, but can also be spun as a negative, because I think at times he did look broken. He did look defeated. He did look like he was struggling there, and that maybe he wanted to get out of there a bit earlier than what he did. So again, if things don't start well at Borough, fans get on his back early, which might happen. Does he have the mental resilience to get himself out of that? Is he mentally strong enough? I really, really hope so. But other than the last 8 months, there's not all that many negatives to Rob Edwards' character. Honestly, there really, really isn't in his career. I honestly believe 12 months ago, this would be looked at much more differently than what the appointment does now. And to be honest, if he was a Spanish manager called Roberto Eduardo and he'd been relegated from La Liga last season and come to Borough fans wouldn't care as much, because he'd have been an exotic, foreign, unknown name. I don't think the relegation would have mattered as much. But because he was in our league, we maybe know more of him, and he's not a luxurious, sexy name who was left field, I don't think he's got as much room for error with the fans as maybe a similar appointment would have under the same circumstances. Look at Regis Lebris last season. He went into Sunderland off the back of a relegation in Ligue 1, got them promoted to the Premier League. So, yeah, for me, there are certainly pros and cons. It's, he's not the guy I would have gone for. It's not an appointment that has got me off the edge of my seat and inspired or excited me that much. But the more I look into it, the more I do believe it could work. The big concern is that I don't think the current Borough squad is suited to his style of play, the much more aggressive, off-the-ball sort of style of play. I think what we've had at Borough in recent years has been the complete opposite. So I think his success or failings at Borough might very well be defined by whatever the hell happens this summer, and if we recruit properly for the style of play he wants us to play, and if the players who are already here can adapt to his new style of play. So that's not really a con as much, but that is a scepticism I do have, and a big hurdle that Borough are going to have to get over from a recruitment and squad point of view if we are to be successful under Rob Edwards. Just jumping in mid-video, guys, just to also reference Rob Edwards' coaching staff, because this has been planned and has been the worst kept secret for so long. The initial video of this announcement was recorded a few days back. It, of course, has since been announced and revealed that Harry Watling and Adi Vivesh are a part of Rob Edwards' backroom team. And my thoughts on that is absolutely fantastic, outstanding. Even if Rob Edwards is not seen to be an upgrade on Michael Carrick, this current coaching setup is a huge upgrade on what we had before. Adi Vivesh is the key one for me. I don't think Harry Watling is as bad as what people have said. His one and only managerial spell at Ebbsfleet wasn't great, but he is known to have been a very good coach at numerous variety of different clubs over the last few years. Rangers especially, he did a good job there. But Adi Vivesh is the one for me. He's had 7 years at Coventry. He was at the heart of their meteoric rise alongside Mark Robbins. And of course, we saw at the start of last season when he left Mark Robbins' side, Coventry's whole team under Robbins fell apart, leading to Robbins losing his job. Adi Vivesh is absolutely beloved by Coventry supporters. He's an incredibly knowledgeable, experienced coach who's apparently really good from a tactical point of view. He's also great at bringing in young players. He had, I think, 9 years at Chelsea where he did brilliant coaching work there as well. So Borough seem to have paired Rob Edwards with the sort of assistant who has the tactical knowledge, the ability to improve young players, coach young players, and has a CV that's absolutely top draw. And Coventry fans cannot speak highly enough of Adi Vivesh. And it sounds like, I don't want to quote this, it's just from what I've gathered, Borough have pretty much got Rob Edwards maybe the best possible number 2 he could have asked for at championship level. It looks like, and it seems like Adi Vivesh is an outstanding top draw pull that Borough have pulled off here, which probably is just as if not even more exciting than the manager himself. So I really hope Adi Vivesh and Rob Edwards can provide a great team. He's got a fantastic coach alongside him as well. So for me, just wanted to add that little bit into the video that Boro's coaching team looks like it is an indefinite upgrade on what we had last season. But then my initial thoughts on the appointment. Part of me is just relieved that it's bloody done now and we can crack on with a summer of hopefully good recruitment. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I know it's a very divisive appointment, but for me, honestly, it's a bad 8 months, and that is that. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as what Boro fans are making it out to be. I will be back later on today because me and Chris are going to be jumping on to do a full-on podcast going into the pros and the cons of Rob Edwards in a lot more depth. So stick around for a bigger feature-length podcast discussing the appointments. So subscribe if you haven't already to check that out. And I will be delving deeper into his tactics and Rob Edwards as a manager more in future videos as we gear up towards pre-season, the kit launches, and before we know it, the season will be up upon us once again. But until then, guys, do take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.